Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Fostering the People podcast, a podcast that encourages everyone to really go after the goals that they want to accomplish and foster growth within themselves, regardless of the foundation you started with. I'm your host, Alana, and I am super excited to be here because guess what? It's the second to last episode of season 1. We are on episode 9 of Fostering the People. Oh my gosh. This is crazy. Like, I started this journey like 10 weeks ago. That is crazy to me to know that I'm here today on episode 9. And I just wanted to thank you guys immensely for your continued support for me and my podcast and the content that I'm releasing. Every like, every subscribe, every share and comment has been definitely beneficial to me. So, this season is centered around what it means to foster growth within yourselves. And I think we've done a pretty good job with going down the list of things. We talked about not having tunnel vision. We talked about pouring into yourself and waiting to focus on other people later. We've even talked about what it means to fail. But we haven't talked about this one thing. The one thing we haven't talked about this season is what resting intentionally looks like. So when we think about rest, I don't want you to think about it as just I'm gonna just make sure I get my 8 hours of sleep. I'm gonna go chill on the couch after getting off of work for a few hours, or I'm gonna just sit and doom scroll all day on Instagram or TikTok or something like that. That's not the type of rest we are talking about today. What rest actually is a form of recovery. The same way an athlete has to rest after a big game is the same way we should be resting after constantly grinding and hustling and going after the goals that we want. Think of it as the space between your mind, your body, and your spirit. Finally taking a moment to process everything that has been happening, all the changes that have been happening, and all the growth that you have been doing in your life. And taking a moment to reflect on it and sit with it for a second. Because even the best athlete needs time to recover after winning a game. It is necessary and it's a requirement to continue fostering growth. And it's actually strategic because not everyone thinks that rest is important. And although there are people that can't get sleep, they still find rest in other ways, whether or not they're constantly traveling, going off the grid and losing their electronics in the process, to kind of just get away and sit with themselves, sit in themselves. And that's really what rest is. It's just being intentional about your time and knowing that you being able to recharge will only help you show up better when you are in a place to continue fostering growth within yourself. So think about it this way. You can't keep pouring from an empty cup. Does that sound familiar? Because we talked about it in episode 2. But that same concept applies. Even if you aren't pouring into others and you're only pouring into yourself, at some point you have to stop and say, hey, I need a break. Even if everything I'm doing is for my benefit, is to help foster growth within myself, you still need a break to recharge so that you can show up as your best version for yourself. So let's transition a little bit because I mentioned resting with intention. But what is the opposite of resting with intention? For me, the opposite of resting with intention is just letting rest consume you. And essentially, that means using it as an excuse, saying, oh, I'm too tired to get up and go to the gym after work. Yes, you are tired. Yes, it may have been a long day at work, but if you have made a promise to yourself and your future self, you cannot allow rest to get in the way of that because it can also become a handicap. Thinking, I am too tired, I don't have enough energy, so I'm just going to focus on my rest. That's definitely something that we should be doing. So if you are doing that, really decipher between your reason for rest. If you really just need a break and you've been grinding really hard, I'm not talking to you people. I'm really talking to the people that use every day as an excuse to rest and not go after their goals. Yes, if you constantly are working 9 to 5 in the office every day and you come home and you're tired, like at some point, that's just how you're going to be. And you got to find the energy to keep pushing through even when you don't feel like it. Because I don't be feeling like doing a lot, like at all, but I gotta do it. I gotta do it because I got goals and I am tired of making promises to myself and not fulfilling those promises. I am really good at keeping promises for other people, but when it comes to me and the goals that I have for myself, I be letting all those goals fall to the wayside to support somebody else's goals. But not anymore. Not anymore. 2026 is the year, baby, that we stay focused on what I got going on. And other things may get in the way, but they aren't going to get in the way forever. I'm not going to let them get in the way forever. So when you think about rest that consumes you, think about it as like rest as a form of avoidance. Rest as a form of staying comfortable and complacent. In rest, they really drains you in a different way because you know you're not showing up your best self. And if you keep allowing rest to be the reason that happens, it's going to only drain you. It's not going to refill you at some point. Because there is a thing as too much rest sometimes. So now let's flip that, because the main difference between the two type of rest that I'm talking about is intention, and whether or not you're resting on purpose or you're hiding from something. And only really you can answer that. And be honest with yourself, because regardless of where you are in your journey of fostering growth within yourself, like people are going to have opinions, and only you can empower yourself to keep going after more. And even if you are the person that goes home every day and just sits on the couch, you can choose to do something different. And it literally starts with just choosing to get up or put a timer on your phone and just like stay within that realm so that you are getting the rest that you need, but don't allow it to consume the rest of your day. Because being honest with yourself about which one it is only empowers you to identify what you need to do to change it. So now let's take a step back, because we've talked about rest, but what does it mean to constantly have your foot on the gas, keeping your foot on these people's necks and not letting up? Because although too much rest can be a problem, not resting at all can also be a problem, and it costs us a lot. Because when you never stop, when you keep showing up, you keep grinding and producing and never giving yourself permission to pause, a few things happen. First, you'll eventually get burned out. Maybe not like immediately, but like you will start to see your energy deplenish over time, because the motivation will start to feel like an obligation. And whatever you produce, if you produced more one day versus the other day, you're going to automatically feel like a failure because you didn't keep up that same energy as the day before. And overall, that will really lead to you having resentment towards the thing that you were initially excited about. Like, take this podcast, for example. Like, if I didn't give myself permission to rest and I felt like I constantly had to produce content and be on the grind with having things done by a certain time, like I wouldn't be giving you guys my best self. I wouldn't even be thinking about the best things to share with you guys as it relates to fostering growth within yourself. But I give myself rest. Whether or not I am going to happy hour with a friend, whether or not I'm just going to sit by the pool, or I'm going to just sit on my porch and just read a book. Like all of those things are rest, and it matters when you give yourself the permission to enjoy it. Because imagine this. Imagine you are giving yourself rest, but you're constantly thinking about all the things you have to do. That's not rest. You may not be doing anything, but your mind is not at rest. And so don't think of rest as just I'm gonna sit down and still scroll on my phone. You have to give your mind, your body, and your spirit rest from whatever you have going on in your life sometimes. And that may be just sitting in the car and just sitting in silence. It may be going on a hike. It may be sitting out on your patio every morning and just sitting with yourself. All those things are rest because no rest can easily turn into resentment. And resentment is a signal that something is wrong, that we are not doing something right in our life. And we cannot create clearly when we are depleted. We cannot put our best foot forward when we have no energy to think clearly, because the work itself will start to reflect the exhaustion underneath it. So don't think of rest as a luxury that only certain people have access to. Think about it as maintenance. And it's absolutely necessary because if we don't maintain our bodies, our minds, and our spirits, there will be consequences. The same way as if you don't work out, you may have a high metabolism now, but trust me, something gonna happen. Something is going to be affected later down the line if you do not prioritize eating healthy. Maybe not every day, but being intentional about what you put in your body and the impacts it could have on you down the line. It's the same way we need to think about how rest, if we don't get enough of it, it could impact us in more ways than one. So I know I said I have absolutely no problem with resting and ain't nobody gonna make me feel guilty about it. But I really wanted to kind of dive in deeper to that because I know that's not the case for everybody. So I want to dive in deeper to what it really means to get rest without feeling guilty about it. So the first step in order to not feeling guilty about getting the rest that we know we need is to give ourselves permission. Like, it's so small. I know I said it earlier, but like it's that important that we need to say it again. Permission to do what we want to do in order to give ourselves rest is the key in order to not feeling guilty. Because you can't feel guilty about nothing that you gave yourself permission to do. And I know stopping sometimes is hard because you want to keep up that momentum. You think that if you stop, you won't have the energy to start again. And that goal that you have will stay a goal and never be a reality. And if you stop, you may also be thinking, well, somebody else may get there before I do. But remember this, there is enough room in this world for you in whatever goal that you have. Even if someone else does it, you can do it too. Your rest will not cost you anything. It will not cost you your dream. It will not cost you your future. But not resting literally may. So the work will still be there when you get back and are fully recharged. And you will only do it better once you do recharge. The second thing that's just as important as permission in order to not feel guilty when you are taking periods of rest is being intentional about what rest looks like, because it's different for everybody. And it is important that you figure out what actually refills you so that you aren't just taking rest days where you are continuing to deplenish yourself, but you're being intentional about the rest that you are taking so that you know it'll recharge you. And the third and final thing is really set a boundary, because you need to decide when rest starts and when it ends. I avoid quite a few things, okay? And if I had the choice to not do something, I would gladly take myself up on it. But sometimes, like, I have to be intentional about that. I need to set boundaries so that I can focus on the things that I need to handle, even if it isn't something that I really want to do. So, what I really want you guys to walk away with today is knowing that rest is essential. And you are not losing momentum by taking it. You are not setting yourself back, and you are not losing out on anything. It is just as important as every other topic we have discussed this season on fostering the people, and it always has been. Like, if you want to foster growth within yourself, you need to know when to give your body, your mind, and your spirit rest. Because the most intentional version of yourself knows when to push and knows when to take pause. And both of those take courage. So, to close out, I encourage everyone, if you need a break, Take it on purpose. Do not feel bad about it. Do it with intention. And if you need to set a boundary around it, make sure you do that because the work isn't going anywhere. And neither are you, and neither am I. And so, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Fostering the People podcast. We are on Apple, YouTube, and Spotify. Also, make sure to check out our social media handles. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Please make sure you like, subscribe, share, and comment. And as always, tune in for next week.